Kyle from Chaparral Motorsports here with a super exciting introduction to you. This here is Suburban Delinquent's brand new motorcycle. Check out the logo. I know you've seen it around if you live down here in Southern California or you follow moto vloggers. You've got to have seen Sub D's channel. Anyhow, these are his graphics. We're going to get them installed here on his WR250F. And then stay tuned because he's going to be posting how he learns how to ride a dirt bike. He's been riding on the street for over 20 years, but now this is his first venture off-road. It's going to be exciting. I'm going to bring Travis in. He's our resident dirt bike expert and graphic installer. He's going to show us his tips and tricks on how to get these graphics onto this bike most effectively with tools you have at home in your garage. Subscribe to our channel as well as to the Suburban Delinquent channel and his dirt bike only channel, which is Extra Delinquent. I'm Kyle. Come on in and take a look.
What's up guys, I'm Travis and I'm going to show you how to apply graphics onto your dirt bike. Now I know there's multiple ways of applying graphics. This is just the way I like doing it, so if you can pick up some tips along the way, that's what we're here for. First I'm going to show you just a couple tools as far as what you're going to need when installing graphics. The first thing you should do is wipe all your plastics down, make sure there's no dirt or dust or debris. You can use Windex or alcohol and a clean rag. Just get them really clean because you don't want any dust or any dirt underneath the graphic so it can stick really good. An X-Acto knife or a razor blade, I like to use this style just because it's more like a pencil and not so close to the razor blade, being that I might slice my fingers off. A towel always comes in handy, and then grab your mom or your girlfriend's blow dryer. Some guys might have heat guns in the garage, which is the proper way to do it, but I've always just went and grabbed mom's blow dryer. Just be sure to put it back. I like to start with the most simple piece, like this front fender graphic. It's small, and then you can get a good feel as far as how the graphic might work. Some graphic companies are different. We have a ton of graphics that we sell inside Chaparral, like factory effects and decor. If you wanted to get some Monster Energy, head on in the store and get those. These are actually custom graphics from Magic Graphics in San Jacinto, California. They did a real good job as far as applying Suburban Delinquent's logo as well as ours and some sponsors that are helping us out. So let's get to applying the graphics. As I mentioned, the first thing you're going to do is wipe the bike down. So all the areas of plastic that's going to be getting a graphic, just wipe it with some alcohol. And the reason we like to use alcohol is alcohol dries extremely fast. There's even some people that like to spray Windex directly onto the back of a graphic so they're able to kind of move it around, and then the Windex will essentially dry and the graphic will stick to the plastic. After the plastics are wiped down and clean, like I mentioned, let's start with a small piece of graphic. So I'm going to start with the front fender first. Now, once you peel the backing off of the graphic, I always like to lay the center of the graphic down first. So I'm going to actually try and press and put pressure down right in the middle of this graphic. Reason being, when that gets pressed down, I'm able to move along to the edges, pressing any air out underneath the graphic if there is any. So let's line it up. And don't be afraid to put the graphic on, and if it goes a little sideways like that, don't be afraid to peel it back up. It's, you know, the graphic companies do a great job using good material, so it's going to come back up and it's going to stick just fine. So now that I have it lined up, I'm going to press down in the middle like I mentioned. And then once you press down in the middle, just work your way to the edges, and that should help get a lot of the air out from underneath the graphic. And keep in mind, the Yamahas have pretty significant grooves and curvature to the plastic. So just be sure and be aware of your motorcycle, because there's a pretty good crevice right here, which is a perfect spot where air bubbles like to build up. So just be sure to really apply pressure within those grooves. And that's what the hair dryer is going to come in handy, or your heat gun. When we're all done with the graphics, we're going to come by and just do a pass with some heat so the graphic and the adhesive really sticks. Your fingers are going to leave a little bit of residue because as you're working with your graphics, you tend to get just a little bit sweaty. So don't be alarmed. Once the graphic's on, just wipe all that oil residue off and you should be good to go. So we're going to move on to the fender arches. Now, as I mentioned, start with the smallest pieces of graphics, or the ones that you might think will be the easiest, because then you can really get an understanding on how it works. Because the shrouds are probably the hardest part of graphic to install. Either the shrouds, or depending on the model of motorcycle, the number plates can be difficult. All right, guys, so the reason I like to always have an X-Acto knife with me is for instances like this. You'll get a little bit of overhang. If you're a perfectionist like me, I always like to cut those little corners so they just don't happen to lift up over time. So I just take the X-Acto knife like this, come in here, give it a quick cut, just so that corner piece will never lift. All right, so moving on to the rear fender graphic. I do have a little trick when it comes to this one because it's a slightly larger graphic. What I like to do is, instead of peeling the entire back off and trying to stick it on, I'll peel the back off only halfway to the center. That way you know when you're putting it down, it's only going to stick at least on one side. So what I'll do is almost fold this back piece exactly in half. And as I've mentioned a few times in the video, always try and apply pressure to the center of the graphic first. So we're going to line it up right here in the center, right up over the Yamaha. Once it's lined up there, and what we'll do is line it up back here. And once it's lined up back here and once it's lined up here, this is when you're just going to want to put your thumb right down the middle. And as I mentioned, once you have the pressure in the middle of the graphic, you can kind of lift it back up just so you know there's no air. And then just start working your way to the edge. So that's some of the overhang I was talking about, which we'll get to towards the end. After you blow dry and you heat the graphics up, that's a good time to go around with the X-Acto knife and cut the corners off that you know might peel up later on down the road. All right, so there's one side of the rear fender done. This is when I basically peel back the other half, which you can peel it back as you work it. You don't have to peel it all off right away. So I'd say the Shroud is the most difficult graphic to apply because it has the most amount of real estate. It has logos or sponsors that you want to represent. So you want the graphic to go on nicely with no air bubbles, and you want it to last for some time as well. As far as this WR250F goes, it seems like the Shroud is cut into about 3 different templates. So I'm going to start with this Chaparral one up top, because then we'll be able to align the logo up with the other graphics later on. So you'll notice as I just put this graphic up top, it kind of has a little bit of overhang, kind of where things are going to get caught. That's one of those, that's a situation to where I'm going to come back with the X-Acto knife and just cut right across the top of that because we don't want that peeling up later on. No matter how much I heat it up and no matter how hard I try and fold it over, it's just too small of a piece to actually get to stick. Same goes with this front corner. We'll probably just X-Acto knife and just round it up. As your hands start to sweat, you'll notice it gets to be a little bit easier because you're able to slide your fingers across the graphic without it getting caught. And you're going to notice that your fingers are going to be probably numb and raw by the end of this, but it's all worth it because your bike's gonna look sweet in the end. Certain graphics like this one, you're not able to really center point the graphic to where you can apply pressure and work your way to the edges. So just apply it at one point to where you think it's straight and work your way to the top. Some guys like to unbolt all their plastics and take them off and apply the graphic in their lap, maybe sitting on the couch, watching some TV. Personally, with my past experience, I feel that that's a little bit more difficult. You have a lot more pressure and stability when the plastics are on the bike, and the plastics are in their natural shape as well. All right, so moving on to the biggest, probably the biggest, most awkward graphic this bike has to offer. And this is going to be one of those ones where you're probably going to be peeling it up, sticking it back on, peeling it up, sticking it back on multiple times. It's okay, it's fine. This is really durable, strong adhesive, and as long as you're peeling it and sticking it back onto the same surface, it's going to stay. We're just going to find a couple points to where we can maybe line this up. And then once we line it up, once we get it all lined up, we'll work out all the bubbles. So again, apply pressure to the center of the graphic and then work your way to the edge from the middle. You're less likely to get air bubbles when you do that. And if you do get air bubbles, peel it up. Put it back down. Okay, so now that this back piece is on securely, now we can excuse the loudness of the graphic. That's how good the adhesive is. But now we can peel this off and kind of work it into the area that we want it to go in. All right, so it looks like we're pretty good. As long as these 3 holes are lined up to where you can get your T-handle in there or any kind of socket or wrench to unscrew the plastic, that's fine. If there's a little bit of graphic overhang, just trim it with the X-Acto knife that we keep on hand. I'm gonna work out the rest of the air bubbles and make sure this graphic lays on correctly, and then we're gonna move on to the other side. Keep in mind, if you do tend to peel and put it back on and it doesn't work, and then you peel it again and you put it back on, the more times you do that, the graphic will stretch. The adhesive won't lose its stickiness, but the template could vary because you're stretching the actual graphic itself. So this is a perfect example of what I was talking about. We have all the other holes lined up fairly well, so we'll just trim this when we come by with the blow dryer or the heat gun later. Most shrouds do come with a gas tank graphic, whether it's the gas tank graphic up top or for Yamaha's the gas tanks down below. This is just a nice way to keep your shrouds and your gas tank protected, as well as the colorway moving throughout your bike. It just adds a different look. You'll notice that these gas tank graphics are perforated, meaning that they slice a bunch of lines in them. The swing arm graphic is easy to apply, and I'll show you how. I like to get it unpeeled from either side, fold it back, get it lined up to where you're going to want it. Looks like right here is going to be a pretty good spot. And once it's lined up like that, and you stick that one side on, well, now you're able to just kind of peel this back, and as you're peeling it back, you can work the graphic on, creating minimal air bubbles. That's that for a swing arm. All right, so here's where your mom's blow dryer comes in handy. If you have a heat gun, you can use that too, but don't get too close with the heat gun because those get really hot. Do some passes with it on high heat. That's gonna really let the adhesive settle, and then after that happens, I'm gonna come by with the X-Acto and just trim up a few areas that we don't want to peel up later on. So I'm just gonna round this corner off just to make it less likely to unpeel. Get the glue to go with it. And look, that's really all I'm taking off, but that will help this entire graphic stay on the bike because this little corner won't start to peel up. Moving along to the top. Now I'm just gonna cut a new circle, kind of continue this circle around the shroud graphic. Again, you just don't want any overhang of your graphics because dirt or water will tend to get underneath it. And then that's gonna help the graphics start to peel. So really, that's all you've gotta do. Just cut around the edge so this extra piece of graphic isn't gonna peel up. So after you get done using the hairdryer and warming up all the graphics that you just applied, work out all the bubbles that need to be worked out, and then go around all the corners and any edges that maybe overhang and cut them off with your razor blade or your X-Acto knife. After that, get the bike loaded into the van or strap it down to the bed of your truck and go ride. Whether it's the track, the trail, this is how you put the graphics on and it should last you a good amount of time. If you guys have any other installation videos that you're worried about when it comes to dirt bikes, leave some comments down below and I'll try and create one. I'm Travis with Chaparral Motorsports. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. We'll see you guys next time.